Hey guys, we're back! Better than ever! Well, not really, because I'm kind of bionic now, but that's another story for another time. This is Turn Bark Time, Season 2, Episode 1. I'm Turn.
I'm the Bark. Welcome to the Trans Cascadia edition.
That will be running from seasons now 2 through 200. Welcome back. It's been a long time. Lots happened. Mr. Barker, well, you want to update us on life really quick?
So we made the great migration back to the home country, and by the home country I mean Longview, Washington, most famous squirrel-loving town in America. We have 5 or 6 squirrel bridges. So I now teach at Long High School, which is a historic building. It's been around. Let's see, almost, we're getting close to 100 years. I think in about a decade, it'll be 100 years.
Oh my gosh.
It's pretty sweet. Yeah, we're doing this online teaching thing, and we bought a new house. So sold a house, bought a house.
Yeah.
And now we're tearing it apart to make it our house.
Very nice. In the middle of the street?
Shanu?
Our house.
Oh.
In the middle of the street. Our house. It's okay. You missed my joke, but that's fine. We got to sing a little bit.
I caught up. I'm a little slow.
Yeah. So, well, good. For those of you who don't know, I am part bionic right now. Oh, you can't even see my crutch in there. There you go. How about that? I was hit by a suspected DUI driver and totaled my truck, broke my leg in 4 places, but I'm on the mend. So I'm walking around with a walking boot now, and I'm good to go. We're also online teaching. I'm still in Quincy, loving it, living it. And enjoying it. You know, the online teaching thing is interesting. Shout out to all the kids who turn their cameras on. Really appreciate that. Shout out to kids who turn their cameras on. So, also, Barker, we can now post our episodes on Instagram because we can use IGTV from our own YouTube account. So maybe be on the lookout for a little Turn Bark Time Instagram to follow, where you can watch our episodes. Just a thought. All right, today.
Technology.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. We're getting really good at it. Today we're talking about a very interesting topic, something that's headlining the news right now, along with all the racial injustice and everything that's going on in the world. We had a big turn of events in politics, and no, I don't just mean the election. We are talking about
the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and kind of the repercussions. We're going to look at the repercussions of what it has for the Supreme Court, and just kind of deal with, what does it all mean? So Ruth Bader Ginsburg is probably the most beloved Supreme Court justice, or like most pop culture icon of a Supreme Court justice like ever, right? I'm actually wearing a Notorious RBG shirt. There you go. Whoop, whoop.
Whoop, whoop.
She passed away on Friday at 87 from complications of pancreatic cancer. So she's had cancer, been dealing with cancer pretty much her whole life. Her first diagnosis was like her senior year of high school.
Yep.
So, and during that, like, she's never missed a day in court of the Supreme Court. She was actually hearing oral arguments from bed while she was in hospital earlier this year. So, I mean, just stone cold beast.
Yep. That's the easiest way to describe her. She is actually really famous. She, like Barker was saying, pop culture icon's a big way to describe her, in terms of the fact that she actually has her own movie made about her, which is kind of unique. And a really good film, by the way, if you have not seen it. Highly recommend. What's the title of that? I can't remember off the top of my head. No, I'm putting you on.
It's called RBG.
That's what I thought it was called, but I wasn't sure.
I believe it's called RBG. I'm not positive. Fact check us.
Yep. We always appreciate a good fact check. But anyway, she is considered one of the most leading. She's considered one of the most. How do I want to say this? I'm going to call it liberal justices the Supreme Court has seen. Very outspoken. So what's really interesting is I think she argued 5 cases in front of the Supreme Court, or is it 4? I think it's 5, and she won 4 of them. But left a legacy behind that was very, very impressive. And if you've been paying attention, I don't know what you guys have on your Instagram or Facebook, or you're probably, but there's a lot of things about like talking about her legacy and things like equal pay, right? Like one of her first things is she got a job at, I want to say it's Rutgers, and that she was told she's not going to be paid as much as her male counterparts because her husband had a job, and so therefore she didn't need as much money, and she took them to court and won. And I mean, that was just the start of her legacy.
She ruled on the U.S. versus Virginia to allow female students to attend the Virginia Military Institute, VMI, which is a military school that's been around. It predates the Civil War. It was like the other West Point for a while, but she's in that case. She was really big in applying the 14th Amendment to prevent gender discrimination and provide gender equality, which is now kind of been expanded to equality for people of different orientations as well. It's kind of the same kind of basic philosophy has been applied. And then another I guess, point in history that made her stand out was in the Gore versus Bush decision in 2000 with the recount. She was on the dissenting opinion, right? It was a 5-4 decision to stop the recount and to award the election essentially to Bush. And normally when a justice provides a dissenting opinion, they say, I respectfully dissent. Like she just flat out said, I dissent. Yep. Which is kind of one of those cultural icon pieces. Like you either see the notorious RBG sign or you see I dissent. And she famously, she's the second female associate justice ever. And her and O'Connor decided that female justices would wear those collars. And so Ginsburg actually had a collar that she would wear if she was giving a dissenting opinion. You can actually buy earrings that look like it. And then she would wear a different collar. She had a specific collar for when she was on the side of the majority opinion as well.
So huge loss to the community, and you had an icon. And again, one of her biggest goals was to try and make it through the election, the upcoming election, because she didn't. Well, I might be jumping ahead of us. Do you have anything to add? Because I'm jumping ahead now.
No, you're fine. We'll just go.
So yeah, her goal was to hopefully make it through to have a non-Donald Trump president replace her on the Supreme Court. Because again, like Parker said, she was battling cancer, and it was something almost every week you would see something about her coming out of the hospital or going to the hospital for treatments and things like that. But like you said, she never missed an oral argument. She always was listening and provided her opinion on the court. So.
And she made sure to schedule, when she was going through chemotherapy, she would schedule it on Fridays so that she would have a 2-day, a weekend to recover from chemotherapy, to make sure that she was at her fittest when it was time on Monday to go back to court.
So now that she's passed away, we get into the part of the replacement, and this has actually been extremely controversial. When you think about it, what's written in the Constitution and how the Supreme Court justice is replaced, it's a checks and balances system. It's nominated by the President of the United States, and then that person goes through and has to be approved by the Senate. But this is where things have changed since Donald Trump and Republicans have controlled the Senate. So first off, it used to be you had to have what we call a supermajority. You have to have 60 votes in the Senate to elect to nominate, or to, what am I saying?
Confirm.
Thank you. Confirm a Supreme Court justice.
Before 75, it was 66%.
Oh, okay.
And then they changed it to 60% and 75.
And then to get Trump nominees through, was it Gorsuch and Kavanaugh that both they used it on? Or did they switch it at Gorsuch, or they switched it at Kavanaugh?
They switched it with Gorsuch.
Okay, so with Neil Gorsuch, Republicans switched they changed the rule, which again, they can do right? It's one of the powers of the Senate can control their own rules, and just made it a plain majority, which then allowed the Senate to pass Neil Gorsuch and Brett Kavanaugh into the Senate, because all they needed was their majority that they had. They didn't have to have any Democrats join them in approving their Supreme Court nominee.
And if you listen, there's a Lindsey Graham clip that's going around. Oh, I forgot to make a slide for him. Sorry, Senator Graham. Losing votes in South Carolina. Yep. We are, not him.
Yeah, not him. We are.
But there's a clip going around where he says, and there's a lot of Republicans during that transition where they changed the Senate procedure, the rule in the Senate, to make it from 60 votes to a simple majority. And Lindsey Graham says, you can use my words against me, and people keep playing that, and they stop in the first 30 seconds. But if you listen to the other minute and a half, or the other minute of that clip, you would hear him talk about how the Republicans are justifying it by saying that it's a reaction to when the Democrats controlled the Senate in 2013 during the Obama administration. They changed the rule for executive branch approvals, or a confirmation of executive appointees, and for lower court judges, so that they could try and get more Obama appointees and just judges appointed before. Well, no, that would have been after 2012. So, but I think it was after 2012. So they knew that they were going to lose control of it, at the midterm, and so, like the Democrats change it. And Lindsey Graham says, we're just doing what you did to us, this is our response to that. And then he goes on to say that, like, we're going to start bringing in Supreme Court justices that are more ideologically, like, varied, because it's not requiring bipartisanship anymore, right? And so, like, if you look at the Senate right now is 53 Republicans and, 47 non-Republicans, because people are like, Bernie Sanders isn't really a Democrat.
Independent.
He's really an independent. I think there's another independent as well. So it's like 45, 2, and 53.
Yeah.
And so what that means is that from a legal standpoint, the question is, can President Trump nominate someone and have them confirmed legally before Election Day on November 3rd? And the answer to that question, from everything that I've found from a legal perspective, is that there's nothing legally that would prevent him from doing that.
Absolutely. And one of the things here that people are getting fired up about is that when Obama was president and he had 11 months left in his presidency, but again, he was on his 8th year, so he was done. He wasn't going to run again. We had a Supreme Court justice, we had an opening on the Supreme Court, and Republicans controlled the Senate, and they wouldn't even hear the case. They wouldn't even give the nominee a chance to talk or anything like that. They wouldn't give him a hearing. They definitely wouldn't give him a vote. And one of the biggest things here is that when we talk about this, it's the reason is that a lot of Republicans said the election should decide, the people should decide who gets to nominate the next Supreme Court justice. Well, now we're looking at 2 months to election, and the Republicans are going to try and put a candidate into the Supreme Court. And by the look of it, it looks like it's going to happen, because they would need 4 dissenting Republicans, to use Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and they're not going to get it. There are Republicans that are considered moderates, and they have said they're going to vote. There's 2 Republicans, as far as I know, that have said that they do not support going forward with a Supreme Court justice nomination. So,
and that would be Murkowski from Alaska, Lisa Murkowski, and Susan Collins from Maine.
Yep.
Who are, I think Murkowski, I'm not sure how contested Murkowski's race is for re-election, but I know that Collins, it is definitely a strategic move for her to try and keep her seat in Maine, where she is being challenged by a Democrat who's running from who's one of the state legislative leaders, is running for the senatorial seat to try and take that from her.
Yep.
So we'll see. And just put it in a frame of reference. So I think we are 39 days away from the election now. right? This is Thursday. So tomorrow will be 38, and on Saturday will be 37 when Trump is expected to make his nomination, make his pick of who his nominee is, and then the vetting process will begin. The average number of days for the people that are on the Supreme Court, like if we look at the justices that are on the Supreme Court right now, the average number of days for the hearings to go through the confirmation process averages out around 74 days. Now, you can flip that around, and Justice John Paul Stevens under President Ford was confirmed in 19 days. So it has happened on a quick turnaround before, but that seat was not as contested. And I guess the thing that people are concerned about is right now there is before Ginsburg's passing, there was a 5-4 split on the court. So if we look at, here we go. So if you kind of take from Justice Roberts over this way, these are all the more conservative justices. So you have Roberts, Scalia, Thomas, Kavanaugh, Gorsuch, and then the more liberal justices that are left would be, starting from my shoulders, Kagan, Breyer, and then Sotomayor up there in the corner, because Ruth Bader Ginsburg is now passed. May her memory be a blessing.
Yes.
And so if President Trump nominates a conservative, which everyone expects him to, like there's no expectation that he's going to pick a moderate or a liberal justice, it moves the nature of the court from being like a 5-4 where it's pretty close to being balanced as you can be with an odd number, to now being a 6-3 conservative majority. And then the other concern is that if Trump gets reelected, that potentially, Justice Breyer is 82, so he's getting up there in age as well. And if Justice Breyer were to either resign or pass away, that could potentially skew the court to even a 7-2 split between conservative and liberal justices. And I think that's where a lot of people are concerned, is we've kind of held a balance. There's been a balance, so to speak. And even if you look at Supreme Court cases that have been decided this summer in the 2019-2020 kind of season of court cases, in McGirt versus Oklahoma, where they said, does parts of Oklahoma really belong to the Native American tribes? They were expecting it like, well, it'll be a 5-4 decision with all of the conservative justices on one side and all the liberal justices on the other. But I believe in that case it was Gorsuch that crossed over with the more liberal justices and decided in favor of the Native American tribes, against the state of Oklahoma, giving kind of the court made I guess you would say, a more liberal ruling on that case, even with one of the conservative justices ruling on the same side. Like, I guess it's important to understand that the Supreme Court justices don't vote or don't decide on cases based on like what we call party lines in politics. They each have varied experience and have certain pieces or parts of law that they prefer more than others.
Yep.
And so the other surprising case was the South Bay United Pentecostal Church, I think. Episcopal Church, maybe? I have it somewhere. Maybe I don't. South Bay United Pentecostal Church sued the state of California when they said that they were preventing in-person church services because of COVID. And it went all the way to the Supreme Court, and Justice Roberts sided again with the more liberal justices and saying, no, this is a power that the government can have in times of emergency. They ruled in favor of the state having that restriction.
Yeah.
Which right now, we'll see what happens, because there was a lower court, I think a district court decision in Pennsylvania that essentially went the other way. Yep. But they're not sure if it will survive the Court of Appeals or not.
Well, and that's interesting that you bring that up, because again, with justices moving back and forth, there are some justices, like we use the term conservative and liberal just because usually what happens is these people usually practice law in some way, shape, or form, and what they choose to argue for and the way they choose to make their arguments kind of shows us a little bit about how they think and what their opinions are. And then, of course, during the vetting process, when the Senate can ask them questions and things like that are televised so the public can see, these people will answer, okay, well, how do you feel? And the one that always comes back to is Roe v. Wade. How do you feel about Roe v. Wade? Which it was basically the government giving the right for women to have to manage their own reproductive needs or to have an abortion, depending on however you want to look at it. And there are justices that actually that are on the conservative side, but they're what we call originalists. And so they look at precedent. What did the court rule before? And that's how I'm going to rule, right? So you can make all these, if something new comes up that's different, the court maybe hasn't ruled on or thought of, then yeah, I'm going to vote how, or I'm going to decide how I want to. The other thing that's important is that what the Supreme Court's job is to rule on the constitutionality of something. Okay, their whole job is to determine if the Constitution is being violated or if it's not being violated. And so that's the big argument here. So you'll see justices like Barker said swing back and forth on these types of decisions. So what we have now though is one candidate who's coming out and looking like Trump's number one candidate, and Trump has promised that he will nominate a woman. It will be a woman candidate to go to the Supreme Court, right? Which again, both I hope he's doing it for the right reasons, but also politically, right? It hopefully garners him the women's or female votes for him. So, and her name is Dr. Amy Barnett is what I want to say, but that could be wrong. Barrett. Yes, that one right there. So, and then who's the other one? I haven't paid attention enough to know.
So Barrett serves on the Seventh Circuit of Appeals out of Chicago. And then the other nominee, so Barrett's name came up when Trump went with Kavanaugh.
Yeah.
And I think there's actually even a quote where he says, "I'm saving her for Ginsburg."
Yep.
So that's where a lot of people are like, there's your front runner, because Trump's already kind of telegraphed that's potentially who his pick is. He's supposed to make his pick by 5:00 on Saturday. Again, they're waiting for
the funeral.
Ginsburg to lie in the Temple of Justice, and then she's lying in state. She's the first woman to lie in state, which is separate than lying in honor, because Rosa Parks lied in honor in the Capitol. But yeah, Ruth Bader Ginsburg is the first female to officially lie in state. So again, kind of breaking gender,
Yep.
39 other people have laid in state, but they've all been male. She's the first female to lay in state. So kind of still breaking ground that way. Yep. But the other nominee potentially is Barbara Lagoa, and she serves on the 11th Circuit of Appeals out of Atlanta.
Yeah.
She's the daughter of Cuban
immigrants.
Right? I'm not sure. I would call them refugees because they fled the Castro administration. Okay,
so it's refugees
in Cuba, but I don't know if they had official refugee status when they came.
Right.
She's worked in the court system. Obviously, a lot of them started as in lower courts. Barrett clerked for Scalia, I believe. In her, she worked underneath Associate Justice Antonin Scalia, so she has kind of a tie that way. Mm-hmm. There is some concerns about when Barrett was appointed to the Circuit of Appeals. Senator Dianne Feinstein, was kind of concerned about, she's a very devout religious person, Catholic, and she's like, is that going to influence the way that you're interpreting, law? Are you going to interpret it? Is that going to make it so you don't necessarily because one of the things that we need to understand is there's a separation of church and state. And so you can't apply religious belief as a legal belief to all people in the United States, because that violates the Establishment Clause, where essentially you can't say Christianity is the official religion of the United States and make a law that's defined by Christian religion specifically.
Yeah.
Right? Because you can't impose Christianity on people who are non-Christians according to the First Amendment of the Constitution.
Right.
So, it'll be interesting to see. Some people are saying that, Barrett has been the choice that Trump has put out there more, but they're saying that Lagoa might be the easier one to get nominated and go through the vetting process. So I've been told there's 2 great episodes of West Wing. I've watched one of them that deal with, it's a dramatization, but it deals with what does it look like behind the scenes when a president's trying to nominate a Supreme Court justice, and kind of the inner workings of that, where they go through and they look at, have you had a parking ticket? Have you ever had a dispute with, something like, look at Brett Kavanaugh. Like, they drug out Brett Kavanaugh's college career, the way he treated women, his consumption of alcohol, his whole private life was scrutinized and put on display
for the whole United States and world.
Yeah.
So,
but I mean, one of the other things, going back a minute, one of the reasons that these Supreme justices can kind of jump around is they don't have to worry about getting reelected.
Yep.
Right? They are appointed, they serve for life or until they retire. The average justice overall serves 16 years, is the average term of service for a Supreme Court justice before they resign or die. So understand that they're kind of freed from the shackles that senators and especially representatives who are up for election every 2 years, right? That there's the scrutiny that they're put under, where it's if you don't vote the right way, your constituency will, vote you out and put somebody else in. The Supreme Court, again, they're above, in a way, they're kind of above that party politics. And they're supposed to look at the law, the Constitution, and other laws free of all of that other kind of noise.
Absolutely.
And you could argue that's why Roberts and Gorsuch on different issues have voted the way that they have, because they get to, it's not necessarily their, I guess it is their opinion, but it's not like they're just making it willy-nilly.
Yeah.
It's founded and has a basis in constitutional law.
Well, and you don't have to, the biggest thing, so the reason the Supreme Court nomination goes for life is because if you look at the Declaration of Independence, one of the list of complaints or the list of grievances says he has made judges dependent on his will alone for their salaries. And what that meant was that if a judge ruled against something King George wanted, he could just kick him out and wouldn't pay him, right? And so that in our country, we established a court system where we said, no, we want it free of politics. Because again, look at what's happening. Look how politically divided we are at this moment. There's nothing stopping Trump, if that was the way, of just clearing out the Supreme Court except for the people he wants in there. So he gets the rulings he wants, right? No, we set it up so that's why we have it logically. And that's what scares some people about Trump getting this appointment through, is because even if Biden wins, this is locked. These people get to serve with good behavior, but I can't tell you, I don't think a Supreme Court justice has ever been impeached. So, and I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon.
I can't think of one off the top of my head.
So, but again, when we look at this, right, these are 2 ladies that could make a monumental impact on U.S. law, right? Their interpretations of the law could change the course of U.S. history for a long, long period of time. We're talking 16 years, right? At least for them, getting to make an impact on U.S. law for 16 years minimum, on average, not minimum. And that's just crazy to think about, and we have to, and we as the American people have to live with it, or Congress has to pass a law or change the law or make an amendment to the Constitution to make that happen. So there is one solution that people have proposed that I personally will say that I'm against, and that is trying to pack the court. So trying to expand the Supreme Court to more than that justices. That way you can fill it with your cronies and stuff like that. And I don't like that. I think 9 justices is already too many. I think we should have stuck with, the 7 was the original kind of number that was hung around. Other fun fact about the Supreme Court, and I know we're just rambling at this point, which is fun. There's actually no qualifications to be on the Supreme Court. Anybody can be on the Supreme Court. I could literally, if Trump was I like that teacher in Washington. He doesn't. But if he did, he'd be I would nominate me, and I could go to the Senate, and if they wanted to, they could approve me, and I could sit there on the Supreme Court, even though I have no legal experience at all, because there's no qualifications to be a Supreme Court justice. And I always thought that was really funny, because we always
be a citizen, don't you? But
I don't even think it says that. I don't even think you have to be a citizen. So
I know you don't have to be natural born because I think there's been Supreme Court justices that were born somewhere else, but I think fact check me on that.
Fact check.
Kind of put this in perspective. So when Ruth Bader Ginsburg, kind of bringing this back to the woman that started everything that we're talking about tonight, she was originally presented as a moderate when Clinton put her up for nomination. She was suggested to Clinton by Orrin Hatch, who was a Republican senator, and her nomination process took 42 days, and she was approved with a 96-3 vote. So, I mean, and that was in that was in 93, 27 years ago. Like 3 decades ago, we actually had political parties come together where the majority of them agreed that the person that we were nominating for Supreme Court justice was a amenable person that the majority of people, supported. I think prior to that, I think Thomas was the one that took the longest. Looking at my list, yeah, he took 99 days. But Justice Thomas, when you look at the record, is one of the most conservative justices on the Supreme Court, and that's the reason why. And he was appointed even before, I think Ginsburg was. Sorry, my list is off because when she passed away, they took her off the list. And all this information that I'm giving is coming from the Congressional Research Committee or whatever it is. They tabulate all of this. They work inside of inside of Congress, and they just tabulate this and they present this information. If you're nerds like us that are willing to go and actually back up what you say with factual evidence on YouTube.
Fun fact, there has been one impeachment of a Supreme Court justice.
Oh, who was it? And
Samuel Chase in 1804 was impeached by the House for letting his political leanings affect his court decisions. So again, right, just so you guys are aware, if you're panicking looking at this woman, if you're looking at Barnett, who's like, oh my gosh, she could bring Catholicism to the court, whatever, but if you're worried about that, right, there is a process to remove Supreme Court justices. However, Samuel Chase was acquitted by the Senate and got to remain in office. He was actually, who nominated him?
Well, if he was going to be getting impeached in 1804, there's not very many people. I'll say Adams.
Nope. Washington nominated him.
Oh, yeah.
So
there was only 3 choices.
Yeah, exactly.
John Hanson wasn't one of them.
Yeah. So again, and Aaron Burr presided over the trial. The acquittal, I think the closest vote for conviction came to 18, and they needed 23. So back when our country was a lot smaller.
Yeah.
But Jefferson had just doubled it. There weren't states yet, though. So big impact on the world, big loss on the world, especially for someone who fought for rights for everyone. Especially women, though, and especially minority groups, women and people of color, and then people who have different sexual orientations than heterosexual. So she did a lot, and she will be missed. And one of the nicest things I actually saw that was written by John Roberts, actually, and he said, never have I had someone where dissents have made such an impact on the world. And then there was another one that was a bunch of it was a conservative law group, I believe, and they said I think he was a law professor when he wrote it, and he basically said I could read her opinion, or I could read her dissents, and I couldn't argue with them. I didn't agree with them, but I couldn't argue with them. And he's like, that's what I really respected about her. So huge loss to the world. Yeah. And it was pretty shocking to all of us. It doesn't matter what political party you are. And I don't think you can make an argument against her that she made a huge impact and made the world a better place. So.
Yeah, and she was willing to reach across the aisle. One of her closest friends, I guess, so to speak, or out of the colleagues that she served with on the Supreme Court, was actually Antonin Scalia, who
Yep.
was a very conservative justice. I think somebody actually made a musical about their relationship.
They were buddies.
Yeah, about their friendship. Even though they were politically very different, they could still have respect for each other and have a friendship. And I think that is really what America needs to get back to, is this idea of we need bipartisanship. We need to end kind of this vitriolic tribal politics where it's either you're with me or you're the enemy. And just, again, we need to kind of work back to where we've been, in a sense of being willing to come together and not just be so caught up with winning at all costs.
And that goes.
The Democrats have already signaled, like you said, that they're like, well, hey, we'll come back and pack the court. We're going to go from, and I think you'd even have to go to like 13 justices, because if there's a 6-3, if it's 6-3, you're going to have to add 4 liberal justices to get the Democrats to, or the liberal justices to have the majority, which would take adding 4 more seats, which would take you from 9 to 13. I can do math.
And I've said this to multiple people, but if this goes for both sides of the aisle, right? Like if Trump wins the election again, right, he still has an opportunity to be more inclusive with his legislature, right? If Biden wins, he has an opportunity to end all of this and kind of reset the gamut, right? Because you look at Obama during his administration when we had the Affordable Care Act, right? It was a lot of Democrats coming in and having a meeting with Obama, and then they told Republicans what they were going to do, right? And now you have Trump, same thing. Like, let's look at the tax plan as the example, right? A bunch of meetings with Republicans, and then we're going to tell the Democrats what to do. Stop doing that. Have a big meeting with everybody at the table and let everyone say their piece, right? And then try and give and compromise, which is what our country's founded on. But that's an episode for another. That's a whole other episode that probably lasts about 10 hours. So, good to be back. So,
go Jacks. Works for both sides of the mountains.
It does. Green and yellow, red and black. So, we don't know what we're gonna do next week. It was cool to come back. So be on the lookout. We're actually and we'll make that Instagram page, and have it up and running. So follow us on Instagram. We can add that. We can start adding that to our videos too. But other than that, anything else? All right, man. DBJ.
Yeah, be nice. Don't be a jerk.
Yep. And until next time, I'm the Turn.
I'm the Bark.
And we are going to be here a long time.
Stay safe.
Yep. And be well. We remembered. Yay.